Top line numbers indicate the country's $5.5 trillion retail market coming to a screeching halt as Americans continue to rely on Amazon, Walmart, and Whole Foods for their essentials in a point-and-click economy. In the movie Field of Dreams, actor Kevin Costner hears a voice that says, "If you build it, they will come." He goes on to turn a cornfield into a baseball diamond, ultimately driving fans thousands of miles to come visit. The investment saves his farm. The question today is, if we build it, will they come? Or have the shelter in place and stay-at-home orders conditioned all of us to purchase everything online and wait for it at our front door to be delivered? Today, our exceptional panel of experts answer that billion-dollar question, and their answers may shock you. How are these trends, along with sheltering in place, impacting the industrial, distribution, and warehouse sectors in a world where same-day deliveries are the normal? Well, maybe not the same day, of course, during a global pandemic. How has COVID impacted the conversion of big box retail and former NBA arenas into distribution facilities? With manufacturing down overall, how does artificial intelligence disrupt the industrial build-outs of tomorrow? And we continue to say every week, we are now in the worst economy of our lifetime, with close to 15% of Americans unemployed. Yet the industrial sector is proving to be a profit center for investors. How, you ask? We'll seek insights and guidance from our panel of experts as we shift our focus this week to the industrial sector. Up first, our exclusive interview with Ari Leibovitz of Ari-El Enterprises. Later, we'll have insights and analysis from our panelists Fadi Nassar of Amson Nassar Development, Jeffrey Schostak of Shostak Brothers and Company, and Gary Weisman of General Development Company. We're obviously leveraging Zoom technology and looking to provide an optimistic outlook during the pandemic, and more importantly, create an online community. So if you'd like to add a question to the discussion, please add it in the chat box, and I'll do my very best to incorporate it. It's Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. I'm Derek Dickow, and this is Impact. Impact on Industrial is proudly sponsored by Signal Restoration Services, a company dedicated to helping you restore your business or property any size, anywhere in North America. If you've ever had a fire, flood loss, or damage of any kind, contact Signal Restoration Services for their relentless customer service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And before we begin, for those of you that have had family or friends impacted by COVID-19, our thoughts and prayers are with you. We've partnered with the Children's Foundation COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund and are doing our best to help them raise funds to support frontline and essential workers. To that end, I'd like to invite you to join us in supporting them with a monetary contribution if you're able to. We actually are tracking this live throughout the program and would appreciate any dollar amount that you can do to help out the Children's Foundation. Once again, it's text 2020 IMPACT to 76278. And if you make a sizable contribution, I'll actually recognize you during the show. All right, we appreciate their help and support. Our first guest is one of the great American success stories. He came to this country, immigrated from Israel at the age of 22 years old with not a dollar to his name. He's the son of Holocaust survivors. He devoted his entire business career to the acquisition, development, and management of real estate investment properties with the focus on income-producing properties. He started Ari-El Enterprises in 1979, which features a diverse real estate portfolio of affiliated properties of more than 4 million square feet comprised of light industrial and flex space, primarily located in Metro Detroit. One of Ari-El's current projects is the redevelopment of the historic Summit Place Mall site here in Pontiac, Michigan, 75 acres and better known as the Oakland County Business Center. Let's welcome Ari Leibovitz to Impact. Good morning, Ari.
Good morning. Good morning, Eric.
Great to see you.
Excited about your program, and I think your program, I've been following it through so far, It's been very enjoyable, very informative. And I just like to pledge 500 towards the children fund and save me the trouble of having to dial in.
Thank you so much for that. I know the Children's Foundation appreciates that. That's fantastic. Ari, I'd like to start with your move from Israel in 1967 when you came to this country. You had no money in your pocket. It was the summer of '67, as many Detroiters and Metro Detroiters certainly remember or know about the riots and uprising of 1967. How on earth did you arrive at commercial real estate as your profession?
Well, I mean, it's kind of things happen, and your destiny takes you into certain places. If I didn't take off in April sometime of '67, I would have been probably serving in the army at the 6-Day War. So I got into Detroit because I had an address to go to. And how I got into real estate, really my first legitimate job was working for a lumberyard. And there I got introduced to numerous builders and kind of learned from the street. As a matter of fact, I used to meet Gary Weisman's father at the Dubs, which was a breakfast restaurant at, I think it was 10 Mile in Greenfield, where all the shakers and movers used to be. And I tried to build my relationship to sell them lumber. And really, I also had a friend who was a real estate salesman selling land to the exodus from Detroit, for people who were leaving Detroit after the riots and looking for what you call a gentleman farm for 2 to 5 acres of land. And I encouraged them, maybe we should do something together. And we used to tie up some farmland on land contract, split them and flip them, create paper. Really, that was my introduction into the real estate world. I knew early in the game I want to work for myself, but I don't want to work for others. So it's kind of inspired me. And the more I dabbled in it, the more I loved it. I loved all the challenge that it offered me, the risk, the intellectual challenge, and the knowledge that I acquired, and the reward that I was able to reap. So to me, real estate is a wonderful place to be. You don't have to be a professor, and you don't need special diplomas. You need to have street smart, and some balls, and take a risk. But you have to be smart about it.
Well, you talked to me about.
And you got to be blessed. I mean, really, I met some good people along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Who shared their knowledge with me, became my friends and my partners, and I love them dearly till today.
Ari, over your storied career, I mean, you've got a very diverse portfolio that you've built. It's been incredible to take a look at what you've done in a variety of verticals within commercial real estate, and you've really become a master in many different sectors. What drew you to the light industrial flex space? If you started off with your first deals being, land and farmland, and how do you evolve over the course of your career into majority of your portfolio in light industrial?
Well, so really, basically, as I said, I started with farmland, and I dabbled in that, created some receivables. I did want to get into income-producing property. My first acquisition of income-producing property actually was a foreclosed apartment project downriver. That was a disaster right during the embargo, oil embargo. Most of you probably don't even remember it. But I actually, I thought about it. What got me into more industrial is because it was cheaper and it was available. So I really always gravitated to the deal. I didn't look for specialization because my portfolio consists of industrial, office, retail, and apartments. But the primary focus ended up being the industrial sector, primarily multi-tenant industrial, because I felt it was protected my downside. I didn't start from zero and had to develop it and wait 2 years until the market might be up or down. When I acquire an existing income producing property, yeah, I make projections, but if I'm off a little, I'm not starting at zero. And industrial was the cheapest per square foot to buy and provided me good upside. I've always been, and I am still today, an opportunity buyer, which looks for value to try to acquire good real estate and see how I can enhance it. The down cycles that I went through have offered me numerous opportunities, and I took advantage of them, but I worked very hard at it. And I've seen the ups and I've seen the downs, and ultimately leverage can make you or break you. So depends on the timing. So that's part of my philosophy into real estate.
You mentioned when you, as an opportunity buyer, looking to add value, you mentioned something I thought it was interesting, that when you look at a deal, you look at your ability to buy right, and that's the most important component of your due diligence, if you will. Could you give us a little bit more on that, and why is that such an important point of distinction for you as to buying deals at the right price?
Well, I mean, look, anyone can buy. But if you buy at the right price, you're protecting your downside and you improve your opportunity for the upside. Meaning, if you didn't overpay, you can survive the difficult times. If you always need to survive on 90 plus occupancies and you're underwater when you're at 70, then you find yourself in a tough spot. So you make the money on the buy, is the way I look at it. And if you buy it right, even if you were off on your projections or you were off on your timing because the economy didn't really serve you as you anticipated, you still got good product, you got good real estate, and will eventually come out. I mean, real estate is a long-term game. It's not a short-term game. You can be a flipper if you want, but I'm a long-term player. I still own properties I bought 45 years ago. It just keeps on giving, So how bad can it get?
It's getting pretty good for you, that's for sure. I do want to, yeah, totally. I do want to ask, what is, in light of the global pandemic that we're in, what is your sense of the current industrial market? I mean, where are we at today? Can you give us a snapshot how you see things?
Yeah, look, the getting into the pandemic, we were in a very strong place with industrial. And when you say industrial, it's a variety of products. It can be light manufacturing, it can be a very basic industrial space that is, 90% warehouse, 10% office, 15% office. You can get into flex and engineering. You can get into bulk distribution. So there are classes within the industrial, but as a whole, the industrial has maintained a very strong occupancy level, which historically we're at a very good place. It also afforded to bring rents up quite significantly. So we were at a very good place. looking at the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, my inclination is industrial is well positioned. I think the pandemic has going to have long-term ramifications because I think this online transition that really has been ongoing for the last 15 years in some accelerated manner is now being put on steroids because things that we never thought we would do online, we're doing, like remote office and running my business online, something I wouldn't do normally. I can see that it works well, and I don't mind that forced vacation to some degree. But my point is that the acceleration of the remote and online activity is going to impact negatively some of the industry, some of the properties in real estate, but it will benefit the industrial sector from 2 points of view. One is that distribution demand is going to significantly increase, and we've seen this with the Amazons of this world, etc. Light manufacturing, all other sectors within the industrial will over time benefit, where I think that other sectors of the real estate market, such as retail and office, are going to feel the impact, and it'll be an accelerated impact.
I do want to ask your opinion because I thought that was a good point about distribution warehouse and how Amazon is been affected by COVID-19. How do you see it playing out as it relates to the last mile? What specific sector of industrial will be the most profitable for investors moving forward?
Well, from a standpoint of profitable, I can't speak to that. From a span of demand, I can say that the fulfillment center, the last mile delivery facilities. I mean, as you know, that Amazon announced they took down the Pontiac Stadium, and they're going to build over 1.5 million square feet of distribution and last mile facilities on that property. The Summit Mall has been looked at, and we have some light discussions with potential users that are looking for similar type of needs, be it cross-dock distribution, bulk space, and some people call it last mile, some people call it fulfillment center, but basically it's getting product to the customer. One of the strong oncoming thing is cooler space, because the grocery industry, the food industry is going more and more online as well. So but I mean, profitable, any product that you bought 20 years ago or 10 years ago, you'll see an increase in rents, and you should be able to benefit from it.
Ari, what advice do you have for our viewers that own maybe a smaller portfolio in industrial, are considering to get active in the space? What would you advise a younger version of yourself?
Look, I've been through this process all these years, and during the time, I've always tried to see what's the favorite product. So one time it was apartment, another time it was office building, and another time it was retail. Retail was always very favorable. To me, the biggest upside is in industrial. Why? Because there is a disconnect in the market. Rents for basic industrial used to be $3 to $5 a square foot. You could have bought them between $30, $25 and $35 a square foot. Okay, It's been moving. It's moving to 50 and 60. Rents have moved from $5 to $7 a square foot. I think you cannot build anything for under $100. And if you talk about more sophisticated buildings in the flex space, you are at 200 plus per building, which was unheard of 10, 15 years ago. So my point is, the biggest upside in my mind is acquisition of industrial properties, repositioning if you can, and taking advantage of that. Apartments are strong, but they're expensive. Cap rates are very low. So that's my recommendation is industrial real estate is going to be the darling. It's already is to some degree head to head with apartments. And you're going to need a place where to do things, and you're going to need a place where to live. Office, I don't know. I think it's going to get impacted negatively. Medical is going to get impacted negatively. And retail has been impacted and will remain. Look, the online and the e-commerce ain't going away. It's only getting stronger. My recommendation is income-producing property is the best bet. But I'm not, Gary Weisman have a different view. He's a developer. I'm more of an investor. So, but I did do some build from the ground up, but that's not my expertise.
You're more of a value add developer. It's a good point to bring up. Mark Twain once wrote, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." He said this after his obituary was mistakenly published. You mentioned about retail taking a hit. Let's talk about the death of American malls. And that's widely been reported. Is that a huge exaggeration? I mean, where do you see the shift with retail in the next, look into your crystal ball over the next 5 years?
Well, it's going to probably be transforming itself. Retail has transformed itself over the last 40 years in many ways. Strip centers, lifestyle centers, factory outlets. Look, we are a very entrepreneurial industry, and brick and mortar is not that easy to replicate. And I think that they're going to be repositioned in some way or another. And I think that I've already seen some of them go into mini storage activity and so on. I believe it's going to transform itself in some fashion or another, and there'll be some casualties along the way. There's no question about it. But I love the challenges. I like to be in the sector I'm in right now. My focus is on industrial, but nevertheless, I picked up some office building and so on. So again, it's about the buy. You make your money on the buy.
Let's move directly into, this is a great segue into our next question about Summit Place Mall, Pontiac, Michigan, a historic site, was there for many years. It's 75 acres, more than 1.5 million square feet of redevelopment for you. And in 2018, I don't know if you remember this, but 2018, you and I were sitting at a table having a discussion about projects, developments, and interests. And you told me Ashley Capital taught you about location, location, location. And as it relates to this deal, in the short term, it's timing, timing, timing. I absolutely love that comment, and that quote stuck with me for a long time. So how has COVID-19 impacted your development plans for the historic site there in Pontiac?
Well, in a way, there's a pause, but since I didn't have any user in my pocket going into it, it didn't necessarily impact me severely. But look, I demolished the entire project within 8 months. We've been shovel ready for the last 6 months. We got a few feelers out there. It hasn't severely impacted me, at least from where I see it. Maybe it's going to bring some prices down, so we'll benefit from it. But I'm not really concerned yet. And my focus is, we put in place tax abatement that we have 100% tax abatement for 10 years. We got our TIF credits lined up. All that took some time, and we rezoned the property, so we got an overlay district where we can do pretty much anything within that overlay district. And primarily what we're going to do is we're going to do a mixed-use development that will consist from anywhere from bulk distribution, light industrial, some maybe food service around the perimeter. So we are open. We have some feelers. We didn't have anything we can deliver within the next 60 days. I don't think our timing has gotten impacted so far in that regards. I want to say a couple of things also before we close, because I know my time is running out. You made a point about being so successful and so forth, but I must say that as an organization, we value the brokerage community. Without the brokerage community, I couldn't do all the deals by myself. We, as an organization, we build on long-term relationships with our clients as tenants and with the brokerage community. So I think the Michigan community of brokers and developer is a small family. We know each other. Reputation is important, and relationship are very, very important to us. And look, each transaction brings in some value to the table, if it is from the broker side, from the lender side, from the tenant side. So it's not just brick and mortar, it's relationships and it's reputation. And we try to bring the best of our organization. As you know, I've been fortunate enough to have two sons in the business with me. I've started the first generation. I'm looking forward to see the next generation of our enterprise. And, I think I wish it on every young entrepreneur to get into real estate. It's a great field, and it requires creativity, some balls, as I said, and street smart.
I got to ask, Ari, it's the $100 million question. I think all of our viewers and every young entrepreneur wants to know. You've had a successful career by any measure. You're still waking up, looking to actively source deals and go out there and build and buy. But also you make it a point to invest sometimes in other partners, and you bring in the younger generation of developers. What do you see? What's important to you when you take on a partner in some projects, and why do you actively, at your age, you're so successful, how do you get out of bed every morning still looking to attack these deals? And then, what do you look for in a young entrepreneur in sort of serving as a mentor, and how should they approach you with opportunities?
Well, I mean, first, I'm very selective. I don't just look for a lot of partners. I've been very low key for many years in minimizing my relationship with partners, not because I don't like partners, because it's easier to operate by yourself. You don't have to be accountable. When I chose some partners nowadays, it's more from a standpoint of giving them an opportunity and being, in a way, a mentor. And, if I fall in love with an individual that has the passion, is a rainmaker, can bring some deals to the tables, and I have good chemistry with them, then I'm open to do a dance. But I'm not out there looking for partners. I'm only here to share my experience and encourage others who are considering getting into real estate. It's a good place to be.
Well, I'm sorry that our time is up. We'll have to do this dance again, hopefully maybe on your patio with a beverage of interest. It's really been an honor for me to sit with you. I could probably do this for a couple hours. So please consider joining us again. Just want to say thank you, stay healthy, stay safe, and wish you and your family all the best. Ari
Thank you, my
Leibovitz.
pleasure.
Thank you. I just want a quick update on our Text to Donate campaign. Appreciate Matthew Chirac, donation of $1,000 from Midwest Mobility Solutions. No advertising, $500. Some anonymous donors, and then of course Ari Leibovitz. That puts us at $2,400 in 25 minutes that we're able to raise to the Children's Foundation. Again, that Text to Donate campaign is text 2020 Impact to 76278. Money goes directly to the Children's Foundation COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund. That's text 2020 Impact to 76278. We'll be right back on Impact.
Hi, I'm Larry Burns, President and CEO of the Children's Foundation. In these unique and challenging times of the ongoing coronavirus, our mission to improve the health and wellness of children and families has become even more important. To keep communities safe and healthy, we have established a COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, allowing us to offer immediate support to community organizations who are now providing food, learning kits for homeschooling, virtual mental health services, and more. With your help, we can reach more children and more families. I invite you to consider making a gift today. It will directly impact some of the most vulnerable communities in need. And to learn more about the work supported by the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, or to donate, please visit www.yourchildrensfoundation.org. Thank you for your continued support. We are in this together. Onward.
As AT&T's #1 partner, MMS prides itself on delivering a world-class experience to our clients and our communities to keep them connected where they live, work, and play. During these challenging times, we are here to serve you. We have many options to keep you connected to your loved ones by offering non-contact transactions and curbside service. Also, because we care about our healthcare professionals, we are offering 3 months of free service to doctors and nurses. Visit mmsmobile.com/stores to find an open location near you and call ahead to set up a curbside appointment.
And now we move to our esteemed panel of experts. He's the President and Chief Executive Officer of Birmingham-based Amson Nassar Development. He brings more than 25 years of an array of domestic and international real estate and financing experience. He sources and underwrites new investments, manages the portfolio of exciting investments, directs the debt and equity placement for project funding, negotiates the firm purchase agreements and leases. As well, he's also the medical also involved in medical ventures, including ambulatory surgical center, MRI, and CT facilities. Amson Nassar designs, builds, owns, and manages more than 1 million square feet of Class A office, high-tech, industrial, and retail space in Southeast Michigan. It's my pleasure to welcome Fadi Nassar to the discussion. Welcome, Fadi.
Hello, Derek. How are you?
Good morning. Our next guest is the co-owner of General Development Company. He's responsible for the strategic planning, broker relations, procurement, and placement of equity and debt, marketing, property management, oversight, investor and lessee relations. Since founding General Development Company more than 37 years ago, he has expertly guided the company through the development and acquisition of more than 5 million square feet of industrial, office, high-tech, and distribution products. Let's welcome Gary Weisman to the discussion. Good morning, Gary. And finally, he's the fourth generation of his family. to join Shostak Brothers and Company, where he's currently president of Shostak Development. He's responsible for sourcing developments, including the 110 land acquisition of the former Palace of Auburn Hills property, formerly the NBA Detroit Pistons Arena. His responsibilities include overseeing all ground-up developments, projects, redevelopment of existing assets, and value-add acquisitions for the company, as well as leading the efforts to secure retail, office, industrial, and healthcare users for Shostak Brothers' 1,000 acres of vacant land in Southeast Michigan. The company is celebrating its centennial 100th year in business with more than 100 properties and 170 restaurants in ownership in all asset classes, with exception only to single-family residents. Let's welcome Jeffrey Shostak to the discussion. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Good morning, Derek. Thanks for having me.
It was President Franklin D. Roosevelt who said about the Great Depression, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. As we look past COVID, will fear slow us or motivate us? Fadi, let's start with you. What are you seeing as the biggest challenges of getting done, and how are you overcoming them?
Well, I think the biggest challenges that we're seeing in this market is tenants that were in the market prior to this pandemic that are taking a wait and see approach. So that certainly slowed things down. That being said, we at Amson Nassar have always taken the steps to make sure that our sites are site plan approved. They're ready. We have a couple of sites in the market right now, one that can accommodate about 180,000 square feet that we've already started clearing and grading, another that can accommodate about 350,000 square feet that we just got clearing and grading permits for. So I think by doing those types of things, once the market opens back up, and we believe that it will, a lot of this pent-up demand will need to be satisfied, and we'll be well positioned to do that.
Fadi, do you have an optimistic view of the industrial market right now?
I do, and I say that because I think Ari touched on this earlier. The industrial market is very unique because you can do certain things at home. You can run an office at home. However, if you're going to manufacture interior automotive parts, you need a facility to do that. If you're going to manufacture a Humvee for the United States military or the Department of Justice, you need a facility to do that. There are certain things that you just simply cannot do at home. So to echo Ari's sentiments, we believe that the industrial, manufacturing, distribution sectors will remain strong.
Jeff, you're the fourth generation leader of a company that's celebrating 100 years in business. Mazel tov on that, and we will have a bourbon, I'm sure, just as soon as we can. Your company's been through Great Depressions, wars, economic disasters of all kinds. How has Shostak Brothers and Company persevered over the years?
Yeah, thanks again, Derek, for having me. And obviously, we're excited that it's our 100th year in business. I think there's a lot of different ways. Obviously, a lot of the items, time periods you mentioned were long before me. But I think the biggest key is, really valuing your people and really empowering people to help work through when you have crises, as they're, in our business and any business industry, crises are going to happen, and you need to be ready as much as you can be to react for them. And we, try to always be opportunistic and entrepreneurial, so we're prepared as much as we can. And then also not only just playing defense and handling the issues that arise during a recession, but also looking at what opportunities and playing some offense as well. So every situation, every downturn, every recession. Obviously, I'm one of the younger guys on this panel. So this is only my second to live through. But everyone is different. And I think it's just you really have to be transparent with your partners, whether those are your tenants, your lenders, whoever it may be. And you really got to work with your people and empower everyone, because these are challenging times that we all need help getting through it together.
Do you have an optimistic view currently in the industrial market today?
I do. As you stated, we're in all asset classes, and industrial is a relatively newer one for us. And I'd say we're, specifically in the distribution center space. And I think, as Ari and I think Fadi also pointed out, it's kind of been a darling in real estate this cycle. Certainly distribution centers. And I think that will continue for all the reasons that people mentioned, with e-commerce growing. Grocery e-commerce has been the slowest mover in e-commerce. Now everyone's been home and has been doing grocery e-commerce and realized it actually works okay. So that will continue to grow. I also think, Americans as a culture are generally, we're not always the most prepared for a situation or a crisis. But when something happens, we react, and sometimes even overreact very well. And so I think, the supply chain, I think the days of, corporate America, Fortune 500 companies waiting for their entire supply chain, or at least a good component of it, to come on a boat from Asia, I think that'll start to change. I don't think it goes away completely, but I think you're going to want companies that are going to want to have more product stored in warehouses in the US. I think they're going to want to try to onshore the best that they can, whether that's US, Canada, or Mexico. But I think all of those items, as preparing for another potential global disaster that affects the supply chain, is you're going to see companies want to carry more goods locally, which clearly helps the growth of the distribution, manufacturing segments of industrial.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we're certainly seeing President Trump make a push for that. Gary, I'd like to welcome you to the discussion. As opposed to Ari, you're more of a ground-up developer in industrial space over the years. Are you optimistic today about the market, about the industrial market? What's your sense of what's happening today?
Well, we're always optimistic, and we're optimistic going on a forward basis. But I would say that in the short term, greenfield sites and development of those are going to be more difficult. I think the strongest commodity at the moment in our industry is not the real estate, but it's your tenants. And we have to do everything necessary to partner with our tenants to make sure that they are healthy, and we work in concert with them.
Talk about the working in concert with your tenants. Are you proactively reaching out to them? Are you waiting on them to contact you? How does that work from an operational standpoint for you? And how do you see the next few months shaping out in terms of, from your vantage point?
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't think that there's a recipe. Every situation, every project, every tenant is a little bit different. But obviously, we've spoken with all of our tenants, and we are being very mindful of what their situations are and whether or not they do or don't need some form of relief. And back when this first began in March, I think everyone was so very concerned, as of course we were, with regard to rent collections for April and for May. And now that April and May are behind us, and I think most of us have done better than we might have anticipated in terms of percentage of rent collection. I think that we now also realize that this problem is going to be here for a while, and it's going to move on into the summer and maybe into the autumn. And that's where we have our eye on the ball right now with regard to that timing.
Fadi, I'd like to ask you, with manufacturing down in our country, especially in the state of Michigan overall, how is artificial intelligence and just generally technology impacting industrial build-outs of tomorrow?
Well, I think artificial intelligence is here to stay. And I think it's certainly, we can see it in the warehouses of the Amazons of the world, where they have fully automated warehouses. We also know that in the automotive manufacturing sector that AI is also impacting that space. What we've learned firsthand is robotics actually take up more space than humans. So as they start to add more robotics to these facilities, they're going to start to require more space. So we don't really see that as a negative, at least from a commercial real estate perspective. Now, that being said, really sophisticated AI does kind of freak me out, but that's on a personal level.
Jeff, I'd like to ask you, how has COVID, or how will COVID impact the conversion of these massive big box retailers that are filing for bankruptcy or are no longer of need in our economy?
Yeah, I mean, that'll be interesting. Who I think a lot of the retailers that were struggling pre-COVID due to e-commerce, COVID, was going to essentially knock a lot of them out. And the question is, what do you do with a lot of that space? We've converted a Home Depot to a distribution center. If you think about it, you walk through a Home Depot, it kind of similar to a warehouse. It's high ceilings. It has not as many docks as you would like in a warehouse, but it has some docks. So I think it purely depends on where the asset's located. If it's attached to a mall or a large property that has challenges of making it more of an industrial use. Old Kmart's, generally the ceilings are too low, the column spacing isn't as good. But some of the larger big boxes that are maybe a little more freestanding in nature and near highways clearly could serve as some sort of reuse for distribution centers. But the challenge, which you talked a little bit about with Fadi, kind of on AI, is Amazon and the e-commerce space, and just even the traditional retailers and distribution, like Walmart and people like that, is their demands in the warehouses are much more specific, and they demand a lot higher type of materials and products in there compared to your traditional automotive sometimes, as far as they need better lighting, they might need more spacing, whereas automotive users that are storing product that maybe doesn't move as often, they can live with an older warehouse or a building converted to a warehouse. Whereas if you notice, Amazon is of course leasing old space as well, but majority of it is ground up because there are challenges for these high production, tons of shipping and receiving e-commerce type users.
Can you give us an update on what's happening at the Palace site, 110 acres, really one of the gems of Oakland County in terms of commercial real estate? Where are we at with that project today?
Yeah, so demo has restarted as of Monday this week. I think that was 2 days ago. It's hard to keep track of what day of the week it is. So demo is underway, resumed, and that'll be done later this year. The implosion was actually scheduled to be right around now, so essentially kind of got pushed back 2 months as construction was halted. The beauty of the Palace is, no big surprise in real estate, obviously location and access. Great access to the freeway, 75 can get you all across town. So that site, the demo is in process, and we're obviously trying to engage users. There are some floating around, but to Gary's point earlier, obviously greenfield land, is going to be, generally in a recession type time, these are ground up, very expensive deals, and so there's usually less of them when things slow down. The advantage of the Palace is its size. It's 110 acres, and it's very well located, that it opens itself up to not just call it high-tech, flex, corporate office R&D, but also some form of clean industrial use as well, larger manufacturing, things of that nature. So, we're still full gung-ho on getting the site cleared and ready to go, and, obviously quoting deals when they come, and, hopefully they come sooner than later, but obviously, as was pointed out, this COVID crisis is clearly looking like it's going to last longer. So we're going to have to, somewhat, we've got to wait and see what the market does.
Gary, let's talk a little bit about the market. Earlier this week, the CEO of WeWork gave an interview, and he said 80% of their rent, that they paid 80% of their rent on over 700 locations, and that they're in friendly discussions with the landlord. Let's go back to what we talked about earlier. What exactly would you advise tenants to be communicating to landlords? So let's put the other hat on now, and what advice do you have for tenants to actually communicate to landlords during the pandemic?
Well, they have to be transparent. I think we heard that earlier. I think Ari might have mentioned that. The tenants have to be transparent, and we have to have an open ear. With that said, it is a delicate dance between what goes on with the tenant and the type of relief that they may need or want. Opportunistic tenants that might not need it yet take the advantage of what is going on because of COVID to look for things that are much more difficult for us to produce. You have to be very careful when you're modifying a lease, because you don't want to be in a situation where you are in a violation of your covenant with your mortgage lender, and then the mortgage lender plays a role as well. So there's really three parties to the question that you asked, between the landlord and the tenant and the lender.
And where do you see in this equation, where do you see landlords generally making the most mistakes right now?
Well, we try not to make mistakes, so I can't speak for other landlords. We don't intend to make it.
What advice, let me ask you this, what advice do you have for other landlords that have a smaller portfolio that are going through this pandemic? What advice do you have for them right now?
As I said earlier, I think the most important thing right now for the next 3, 4, 5 months are the tenants. I think you have to be partners with your tenants. You have to understand exactly what their needs are and what their problems are and how to give them relief. And if you are smaller in size, you're just going to be more hands-on. You've got to be there. You've got to show up. I know that's hard to do right now with COVID, and there's some lockdowns and things of that nature, but you have to be there for your customer. Most important.
Fadi, let's talk about the customer for a second. I have a question here about capital improvements in vendor services for your customers, and it kind of piggybacks off what Joseph Casperson's asking here. So I'd like to ask you, how are you seeing building cleaning practices adapt and change within your facilities, and how are those associated costs affecting your tenants?
Well, fortunately, the janitorial company that we use actually services the University of Michigan's medical facilities as well. So they already have in place really great cleaning practices that are really at hospital standards. So we'll continue to push those types of practices forward. And we really haven't had to make too many changes because we already had those systems in place.
Are you advancing those costs to your tenants, or do you absorb them as a landlord?
Well, again, we really didn't have to change anything because we were fortunate enough to use a cleaning service that services U of M hospital systems. So they already had the necessary components to really facilitate those types of services.
Oh, that's good. Let's talk about
advice.
advice.
So there was no trade-off, really.
Let's talk now about advice that you have for other landlords or developers that are in construction mode right now. What advice do you have for them during the pandemic?
Well, I think that when I hear things like the new normal, I want to reject those types of that logic because I have a belief that the Trump administration has done an incredible job of rolling out testing systems, manufacturing ventilators, doing things that I think are necessary. The multi-trillion-dollar fund, the relief fund, really in an unprecedented time frame. All of those things, I think, have really protected what could have been a much worse crisis. So, I have more of an optimistic outlook. I certainly think that, like as Gary mentioned, looking at third and fourth quarter of this year is going to be critical. I think that we'll start to see some significant increases back in the market, and we hope that 21 will be much stronger than that. So again, we're positioning all of our assets and we're moving forward so that we can handle any tenant requirements in the market.
Jeff, I got a question here from Councilman Robert Donovic, City of Livonia, where Shostak Brothers is headquartered. Are you postponing capital improvements on buildings due to COVID-19 and the future uncertainties, or are you moving forward with these improvements during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of the questions during COVID, a lot of the answers are, there's not a one size fits all. A lot of it's case by case, whether it's capital improvements, rent relief discussions, whatever it might be. So, I mean, the quick answer is no, we are not postponing. I mean, we have 2 active deals on leases that were signed or about to get signed on distribution centers. And, we're spending money as we speak to, do what we need to do to get the deals done. We're not going to defer any maintenance that's going to, hinder the property or hurt us, down the way. Are we being careful with expenditures like, all companies are right now? Absolutely. But a lot of the work, is generally we're waiting on, when we have a deal. Sometimes you spend the work, the capital improvements in advance. Maybe when you buy a deal, if you're buying an old building and you're going to convert it, so you want it to look, more presentable to market it. And once you've done that, a lot of times the rest of the dollars you're going to spend when you have a user. But as far as office buildings, parking garages, and just calling our existing portfolio, we're still spending that money as planned, to keep our buildings in good condition.
Gary, I want to ask, how do you obtain valuations during a global pandemic?
That's a good question. I don't think you're going to get good valuations at the moment. I think that we have to wait for the fog to lift a bit and see where the dust settles. I think that there's not a lot of trading going on one way or the other, and I think that makes it difficult to establish values. If I could just go back for 1 second to something that Fadi was talking about, I think it's also important to talk about COVID safety on the job site. We have several construction projects that have just restarted from deals that were signed a while ago and were on hold while the governor had us under lockdown. And temperatures, taking of temperatures, filling out forms, getting information from the people that enter the construction site in order to keep themselves safe and others, I think is an important issue.
I want to ask all three of you this. This will be my final question, so do your best in terms of time. Warren Buffett is famous for saying it pays to be greedy when others are fearful. What is the most important piece of advice you would give to an investor right now?
Who's going to?
Gary, let's start with you.
Look for opportunities, keep your eyes and ears open, and when common sense tells you not to do something, do it.
Jeff.
That was well said, Gary. I would say, you got to grind. There's going to be opportunities that come out of this. I think in industrial, there'll be less of them because I just think the asset class is, best well positioned to move out of this the quickest and potentially grow. But I think it's just, you got to grind and you got to network, like Ari talked about, you got to work the brokers because there will be opportunities, and it's okay to be patient. Don't rush to see what the first opportunity you see there.
And Fadi, we'll close with you.
I have to go back to what Ari said, and the opportunity is in the buy. As Gary mentioned also, and Jeffrey, just to echo, I think it's the same response. You have to stay laser focused, and there's always going to be opportunities there. You have to chase them.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate our powerhouse panelists, Fadi Nassar of Amson Nassar Development, Jeffrey Shostak of Shostak Brothers and Company, and Gary Weisman of General Development Company, providing insights and wisdom during the pandemic on all things related to the industrial market. We appreciate you guys. Stay healthy, stay safe. We hope you enjoyed this segment. We're sensitive to all the lives that have been lost and impacted by COVID-19, and as such, are supporting the Children's Foundation COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund. If you'd like to support their efforts for frontlines and essential service workers, text 2020 IMPACT to 76278. I'm so honored to let you know that as of this program, we raised $2,600 in a matter of 60 minutes, all going directly to the foundation. So thank you very much for your efforts. Again, helping us make a difference while making impact. This show, Impact on Industrial, is sponsored by Signal Restoration Services, providing relentless customer service 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for all of your remediation needs. You can catch this program and all of our Impact programs on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe today. Tell a colleague, tell a friend, share the information if you found it useful, and join us next week as we focus on the impact on hospitality. I'm pleased to announce Justin Winslow, the president of the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, will give us an up-to-date on what their plans are to reopen the restaurant and bar and hotel industry. Please join us. We appreciate you taking time today. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you soon on Impact.
You created it. You believe in it. A brand dedicated to excellence and destined for growth. It's a dream that propels you, that colors every step you take, that looms large and steers you towards success. Your vision sparks passion, exudes luxury. Now is the moment to draw them in, to become what they covet, to navigate to that next level, to rise above and reach beyond, to set a course that exceeds even your own expectations, to leave the competition in your wake. Now is your moment to be the brand everyone believes in.